PRC.
Calling to order the Board of Education special meeting work session for Tuesday, April 2026. We do have a quorum. Roger, good to see you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Appreciate it.
Yes. And we'll start with our introduction of guests. So let's start on the way back.
Navarro Chandler, Dean of General Education and Transfer.
Kevin Hodger, English Support Specialist too.
Richard Plot, Information Technology.
I call it Chief. Greg McCown, Chief Facilities Officer.
Beth Sinclair, RCC Foundation. We are, business workforce.
I'm Mohammed, Institutional Effectiveness and Planning.
Dave Kohler, Vice President of Student Learning and Success.
Welcome. We are excited to have our special presentation. I think you want to do a little setup though first.
Yeah, so Esam is going to guide us through where we are with the process planning for the strategic planning that will come up the next year. A couple quick reminders and setting that I want to do is one reminder is that we are intentionally focusing on kind of external non-employee efforts to and through the point of accreditation. So our employees, when our accreditors come, are prepared to talk about the work we've done, not so much where we're going, because it's more of a reflective experience. So leading up to that, there'll be more of the environmental standards, engagement at the board, and a couple others. I know they'll talk about it. But the other guiding principle I will say that is informed what Esam will share to me, and I definitely welcome feedback from the board on this is, if you look at strategic planning processes, especially those of us who have been involved with them for a lot of years, the tried and true is to do a SWOT analysis and revisit mission, vision, values, and goals, and there's a pretty involved community process. It's harder to find that process deployed these days as civic engagement with community leaders can be difficult with the ability to just get survey research, people to respond on their own time. And so a process that is acknowledging of that is something that's being taken into consideration. The other one is, I think, that sometimes like a really comprehensive strategic plan can be influenced by why we say one of two kind of leading factors. One being maybe we really don't know that we're heading the right direction, so we need to get a pulse from the community. The other being, we've got some opportunity with some resources to do some really reimagined things. Unfortunately, given the current situation in Oregon, I don't know that we're looking at an abundance of resources that will get a point at a lot of, so taking on new things would be difficult. But the better thing there, I will say, is I have tremendous confidence, and we'll see more of it in our mission fulfillment report, that we are heading the right direction. We're seeing that through the validation of Carnegie, through opportunity. I hear it in a lot of community conversations that are ongoing. So there's more of a spotlight and on post-secondary in Oregon, but we still want to capture the specifics of it. And so I will just say we're looking at this strategic planning process as one that is not as comprehensive as sometimes we've seen in the past, but really, what is it we want our college to be about over the next finite amount of years, and how do we make sure that if that's what we're about, that we're tracking progress and momentum kind of toward it. So I will pause there and let Esam jump in a little bit, and hopefully what you'll see from him will align with that, but definitely will field any questions or thought from the board through the process.
Dr. Mohammed.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, good evening, and thank you for spending a little more time with me. And of course, the first thing you notice in that is that instead of work session, I ended up saying workshop. I don't know what I was thinking. Sorry about that. So let's move a little forward. In my remarks and engagement with you today, I want to focus on three things. The community engagement survey, which you have received a draft on. Also the concept paper for future plan, of which you've also received a draft on. And future retreat, the board retreat, and subsequent timeline from. In between those two, as time permits, I'm going to build in some time where I'm going to pause after each of these and I'll flip the script a little bit and ask you some questions, which will help you ask me more things, hopefully easy ones, but so that being said, let's talk about the community engagement survey that we're getting ready to send out. What you see is we had the draft that you received was what the alternative we chose based on a lot. One was have the community engagement survey as we have had in the past, and then have a separate one. And based on scholarship and best practices, most of all, on the respect for time that people have. We decided to combine the two of them so that it goes out to a large segment of the population all at once. And the time factor is important. Our research shows that for something like a strategic planning survey or strategic input, anywhere where you get too far out of the 7-minute bound, people decide to close it and go to dinner. Or lunch, I don't know. But 7 minutes is kind of and that's what we have kept it as. We did some test runs. The strategic planning model that we received, it was talking at about 6:40. So we are right there with a little bit of leeway. What it does, and I hope you share with me this perspective, that it brings mission to an operational term for the community to give feedback on. Fairly straightforward English, fairly straightforward language, and we ask fairly straightforward answers, but in cases where it is appropriate, ask them to provide multiple answers. And there are opportunities for freeform. I know some of us want to write stuff in addition to what regular surveys say. I know I'm one of them sometimes, especially when I'm not happy. But yeah, and that is, and I chuckle about it, but this, when people are okay with something, they're more likely have those. The bullet points are important. When they're really upset, they want to write something about it. And that's human psychology. I hope you also saw that, what the community engagement survey strategic planning module does is it leans on both opportunity, which we have talked about for a while, but also on innovation, especially towards the end. We ask a certain question with a focus on artificial intelligence, which is the big trend. Heck, by the time we are done with this meeting, we probably would have increased our capacity for it 2 or 3%. That's how it's moving. And the community engagement strategic planning module is one of 2 parts of engagement opportunity for the community. I'll touch on the second part towards the end of this presentation because there's a reason for that. So that being said, this is kind of setting the framework for where we are with the strategic planning module. Here are questions for you. And I told you I was going to flip the script a little bit instead of asking you, hey, what questions do you have for me? I'll certainly take those questions. But as you look at it, as you look at the survey, the module which was sent to you, one, what suggestions do you have for fine-tuning the survey while keeping the structure and the time limits intact? And that's why I mentioned the 7-minute golden rule. And also, as a collective, what role can you play in maximizing both the reach of the survey and its participation? I know, Gary, you had mentioned it at our last survey. It was important, which I appreciated. So we were able to create QR codes. But are there, in addition to that, are there other things collectively as a board that you would suggest to keep the survey better and maximizing it? So I'm open to your thoughts and your questions on that.
Very pensive look.
I do. I think I can plan question number 2. Obviously, we all have our social circle, and some may be people that you really want to have take this survey. I would think that some of the people that we think should be asked may escape you folks. You know,
Fair enough.
because it's obviously, we all have different bubbles that we live in. And I would be more than happy to provide you with the list of names of folks that I think you should know because they have either indirect or direct gravitas in our community. I guess that's a good way to put it. And people you really want to hear from because they may be influence leaders that you don't know of. So I'd be glad to help that. So that's my answer to the question too. You guys have number one. So
I actually was thinking very similarly, Pat, around number two, about how can we get the reach out there into some potential circles that might not be tapped into. So you answered that for me. Gary, do you have?
Yeah, I was going to, because I don't have a copy of the questions that you sent in the board letter. So if you have a copy of those, I'm happy to reflect on that. Otherwise, I could look on my phone or my email. But thank you, appreciate that.
just for you.
All right.
Make sure to share that.
I'll have you look first.
Okay.
I do think that I agree about the need to have some specific outreach to various groups in the communities. I've had thoughts about what board outreach should look like. And I think that Rotary clubs and chambers are good organizations to reach. But also there are other elected officials in the communities of the various towns and cities that we reside in. And what do they think of the offerings that we have? What about the advisory committees, for example, of the various work programs that they serve for us in terms of getting students involved in programs. So all of the advisory committees would be another really important segment. Of course, students, our clients, our customers, if you will, how to really push this out and ensure we get a really strong representation from those folks. And then the ordinary taxpayer, who supports the college through their taxes, and they'll be the owners of the corporation. How do we do a good job in some random way of getting the survey out to be able to reach people that we don't know, that we wouldn't ordinarily reach, but to have some follow-up with ensuring that somehow their voices are heard as well. So those are some of my just thoughts about that.
Absolutely. If I can, and you're absolutely right. One of the things we did since I last talked to you in the audience that it's immediately going out. We have added elected and appointed officials at the city, local city and state level as well, and all the members of Congress. We have added those. And as soon as we are finding more information, we'll add them. And Pat, to your point, absolutely. Whatever you give me, I'll flash it into the audience. There's no harm in doing that. Only good can come of it. And to the other thing, Gary, yes, we are going to have, in addition to those that this is going out directly, just like in the last time, we are going to make it available on our social media channels.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Anybody else?
I was thinking my social circles aren't as prestigious as Pat. Would probably reach a different audience, but we can all do that. I was thinking, and it was brought up, we do a lot of outreach to Rotaries and clubs and where you get the more business and elected officials. And so I'm trying to think of where you go to get regular people who aren't engaged maybe so much in community groups. And I was maybe thinking PTSAs where at the different schools where parents come and get together, and maybe like the band boosters or athletic club boosters at the high schools. And then I know we post on my business, we post flyers with different events and things. And I'd be happy, to post about a community survey. I think, and if you had the QR code on that, that might be helpful.
That gets sprinkles if I submit the survey.
Yes, I could. For everyone, not just you.
Well, you know what, the questions make me wonder, because I think we can we want the whole community's feedback, and yet we're not gonna be able to go knock on every door in the whole community. So I wonder if there's a compromise where, when we have the targeted audience, additionally, knowing that there are different circles, if maybe we could do some handouts with some QR codes to give to board members. And if you're talking with some of these folks, you can say, here, all you do is do this QR code, and that will allow that level of engagement, because there's just not going to be a shortage of stakeholders, and somebody might be in Rotary and they might be a band parent and they might go into the business and buy ice cream and it's the same person.
It's true.
Business card would be awesome.
That's right.
All this card size.
Carry around.
You should really.
I think so too. And I know if members of my team are watching, they know I'm obsessed about QR codes, so. I agree. I mean, something like that, which each of you has several of them, and wherever you go, you can pass it out.
That's a good idea.
I don't see there is any harm in that.
Go ahead.
When I was looking at this, the last time, it reminded me, will they know what the mission is when they answer the question?
We are going to put a URL link that here is the mission.
Okay, so they'll have to they'll go find it. It's not something you think you could place in the question itself?
I think we can do that.
Only because that's one extra step that someone has to
Good point,
go
yeah.
to.
Mhm.
But, because I was thinking, these are great questions to ask. But I wondered if having that mission or vision, whatever, would be available would be great.
Absolutely.
A question about maybe number one, when somebody fills this out, of course, like Randy says, there's gonna be no lack of participants, I assume, and they're all gonna come from different venues, different silos in our community. If I was gonna take this for like job placement or manufacturing training, or if I was looking for that, I'd wanna know if the person who's filling this out is in fact manufacturer or employer. It'd be nice to have that, and that's, I don't know how you, because you may want to weight the answers. I'd want to know about the quality of our training, talking to somebody who's actually hiring our employees, rather than somebody who hears about it on Facebook.
We had the disaggregated data at the beginning of the
Okay.
survey, that these are the additional questions that go
Yeah.
on the community engagement survey that was shared with you last
Yeah.
year. At the beginning of the survey, there's some things that will allow us to identify populations and disaggregate them.
There are about 12 categories of organizations they're affiliated with. So yeah, it'll be there.
Double checking Roger up there, seeing if he had any feedback or questions, so.
Sorry, Roger.
No, you're good.
I think I'm good, Vanessa. Thanks for checking in. Everything that I had in mind, as little as it is, has probably already been said. But I'm impressed with the thought process that's gone into this so far. It's a kind of a reformulation of what we've done in the past, and it seems to me it's time to break out and do something different. And I'm impressed with the way it's gone so far.
Right.
Madam Chairman, the next one. The next one, of course, the next part is, you're talking about the strategic plan concept paper, which we shared. And just to recap, you have heard me say this before, that it is simple. Like, again, plain language says what it does, pretty basic, if you will. Basic, simple, but not easy. I'm not going to argue it is, and it shouldn't be. It is short. It is, you saw the concept, it is no more than 2.5 to 3 pages. And it is nimble. Instead of putting, instead of having a single goal which rests on just one single metric, it allows us to be flexible about balancing them as things change across 5 different student populations. It also leans heavily into transforming access, which is a big part of our mission, into summative success and into maximized economic opportunity. And by the end of this hour, I think you're going to be sick of me using the term opportunity. But it is a big thing. It was immensely gratifying when I started out within a few months to hear that Carnegie had designated us as the only opportunity college in the state. That's a pretty big deal. And it's not a random thing. I mean, that's what we do really. Sometimes we don't realize it. I mean, when people coming in to the time that they're in the workforce, and moving up the ladder, helping their families, helping prosperity. It is a real thing. That's what we do. So the plan does lean heavily into making that connection very clear. Also, because it is a departure from plans that you may have seen in the past and others have seen, it still continues the importance of underlying KPIs, In operational plans, things like retention and graduation rates, transfer rates, completion of courses rates, fiscal stability, top-notch employees, all those, without those things, without tracking those, we are not going to be tracking what you have in front of you. So there is a connection, just it's not at the top level, it's the underlying level. And it continues to lean on both opportunity and innovation. And finally, as I see it, it operationalizes the mission of the college in a very concrete manner, in a sequential manner: access, success, and economic opportunity. So it presents our, one way to look at it is the strategic plan, while it is simple, it presents both parts of our mission, the access and economic opportunity, in a simple, concrete way, in that if somebody asks you and me about it, I'll be the first one to tell you. If somebody asks me right now, describe your strategic plan, I'll say, well, where is the Excel spreadsheet? This is something which moves away from it a little bit, makes it easier to communicate that, while also being very direct that the strategic plan measures the success of your mission. At least that's how our perspective is, and I hope that you share some of that as we talk about it. So again, going by the same formula as before, as we move forward from this, I have questions for you, that you can have questions for me. Two big questions. As you have seen this, how would you compare the ease of communicating a strategic plan like this with that which is compared to that which is current or more traditional? And yes, to some extent, it's a leading question. I get it. And the other thing is, I mean, as you look at it, this is something which was a little bit of an open question that, there are parts of the strategic plan concept which talk about transfers and completions, the degrees, the certificates, the workforce certifications. What are your thoughts about adding some kind of a bonus points to those degrees or certifications which we consider critical? And then, of course, the question comes up, well, what does mean critical? And I'm sure Lisa and I and others, we have some thoughts about it, but generally it is, is it something the Valley needs right now more than anybody else? Nursing is a great example. Somebody like, a planning director is not. I mean, that kind of stuff. So those kind of things. So as you look at these two discussion questions, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and then your questions.
Thank you. I think these are great questions to ask us, but I had a couple of questions first.
Go right ahead.
Is there anything magical or in your mind important about the 20 RCC credits prior to high school graduation in your mind?
Yes. And there is no set number of credits, but in my conversation with our folks in that area, it seems that is kind of an average plus. This is what people do, but they do a little less. But 20 is somewhat of an average plus a stretch mark there. Okay. So it is. That's what is there. We have looked at literature. That is there a literature that tells us, well, here this is a very good one. There isn't much. So this is a little bit of gray area.
Okay, but it's a little bit above the average of what students are taking. And my other question had to do with the index that you were describing, because one of the thoughts that jumped out at me was the fact that there wouldn't be a specific goal around building the culture here, which is so important for students to feel welcomed, feel safe, to be able to feel supported. And I like the idea that the other departments could be factored into these weights in some interesting way, because they're all contributing to these outcomes. And I love the fact that it's outcomes based. So the metrics are going to be right on a sort of a scoreboard, if you will. So can you give an example of how human resources or the instructional environment or the sense of belonging, how those would factor into some predetermined formula that gets added to these weights.
I can share some of the scholarship behind it. One of the things, as you know, Gary, that we track is our Sense and SESI student engagement data. We know that there are areas that we do very well. There's areas that we could do better. One of the holdings in that is that, and it is almost a straight line.
People are very happy right now.
One of the holdings in that, for example, is that when students, especially first year students, when they come in, when the question is asked, how much you think you feel a sense of belonging, when those numbers go up, so do the 20 and 30 credit hour accomplishments first year. So there is a direct connection there. The other connection is that when advising is one-to-one, advising is more focused, we see more students go from being undeclared majors to actually something that they declare. And we know that when that happens, completions go up, graduations go up. So it is an indirect connection, but the connection is there. As far as human resources, absolutely, it is qualified faculty, those who are spending more time in teaching. There is a direct connection to that, to course completions, and from course completions to program completions and graduation rates. So the connection is there. How we articulate it in our operation plans has to be formatted and formulated, but it is there. In other words, if we don't have qualified teachers or advisors, I suspect you'll see those numbers go down very fast.
So just because I think I'm understanding your answer, that is that a subset of these these formulas would be course completion. How many students registered for a course and then completed that course? They didn't drop out.
Absolutely.
Right. But that number, that metric would somehow algorithmically would be included in these factors.
It'll be subsumed in them, that as you see these factors, you'll also see the underlying things which channel them. Now, and I wouldn't directly do the algorithmic thing, partly because we know that there are times that things are somewhat outside of our control. For example, if for some reason we got in a given class, in a given incoming class, we got everybody who's coming out of a high school with a 3.8. Chances are there's not much we'll have to do for those numbers to go up, and vice versa. So to guard against that, instead of directly connecting, if this happens, this shall too happen, we provide the full picture. This is happening also because this is happening, kind of a thing.
Okay. Because so that explains why that specific criteria, like how many students are registered for courses and finish them, not dropping out, isn't included in your student success area, but the data would be gathered
Absolutely
in a way that would then be added as a factor into that.
So not every metric would fit into a calculation. So if you say a calculation, for example, if we say we're going to be all about graduation rate, I'll just make it up. We say it's all about graduation rate. That's a simple calculation,
Yes.
really. But there's a lot of things we want to know. We want to know what's our fall to winter retention, because if they're not retaining, they're not going to graduate. What's our fall to fall? So those calculations won't roll into the completion rate, but those are factors that we consider to say we're struggling in this early indicator for this ultimate result. So we're not going to move this needle if these things don't get fixed. What's happening to term? And so I'll share that in a way to say, what that means is we're going to have a college plan with college KPIs, and departments and divisions have started to say, well, we will have departmental goals and plans that contribute to it. So it won't be a factor, but we'll say, we know we contribute to associate and certificate completion in HR by making sure that we have a hiring process and onboarding that helps recruit and retain quality employees, because if we aren't retaining quality employees, then, you know, you're not gonna grow graduation, right? So they recognize retention strategies include onboarding, making sure people have access to the resources they need. So that's how HR would contribute, and then they could look at stay surveys and those kinds of things that are a departmental level assessment, but it wouldn't roll into this. They just say, this is our departmental metric that contributes to that overall number you're moving.
And and the president has honed in on that particular thing that, you know, while these are the top level indicators, there will be leading indicators elsewhere across the college. Which when we see that, we have every expectation that if these things are doing good in my department, chances are the student success index is also doing good. And vice versa.
My question on the number 2, are you thinking different from the what you, the kind of proposed index weight, like maybe 22 and somebody else's 13, or because those two are already weighted, you know, second highest to the completion part. So I don't necessarily know that.
I think that's a great question, and it could be one of two ways. One of them could be, you know, that it's going to be 100 because that's a baseline. It's, but in some cases where no way to rain on my parade, literally.
That's how the coats come out.
That's one way of doing it, that, you know, in some cases, can we change it from 20 to 21% and something else from 15 to 14? The other way is, without going too far into the weeds, that for some of the completions that we bring into completions, we still keep the overall 20%. But for some of those critical area completions, we increase their internal number a little bit. So either one of them is possible. From your perspective, do you have a preference?
No preference. I just was asking the question.
Because that's, I mean, that's exactly
It's
the
a good-
question which came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked the thought of the access leads to success is economic opportunity. And those are probably the two that would lead to that economic opportunity and a little higher.
That's right.
Right. And so that makes sense.
Just a little bit, I mean, a bump, a bonus, if you will.
Yeah.
The thing I want to point out real quick with this is what you're seeing is an emphasis on success, where maybe an emphasis on access would look like, you know, bring in this percentage of graduating direct matriculators from high school, this many adult learners, and that's what an heavily focused access model would be. And what we're saying here is we've worked on access the last couple of years and we've seen the enrollment numbers grow. We want to create intentionality that puts pressure on us for success. Make sure the ones we get are their RCC experience continues to hold value, as Carnegie has told us it has.
We still have the access part on here with the GED with the accelerated high school. So that's already baked
Yeah.
into the.
But like an access might be move GED from 40 to 60 people. So it's like it becomes more participant, and this is more, you know, outcomes and so the
Of the
outcomes
people
is-
we have
yeah,
doing it.
Yeah.
How are they doing?
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, you have a point that, you know, it is built in as a leading indicator. We wouldn't have these outcomes if we didn't have them.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going back a little ways, but we are talking about your belonging, and that's such a subjective term. So I'm just wondering, is there a definition we have for belonging? Because
Yeah, in the student engagement surveys that we do, and unless their language has changed in the last 2 or 3 years, which I don't believe it has, it simply asks, I mean, do you feel you belong in your class or in the institution? It leaves it up to the responder. But I get your point. It is subjective, and even in you know, at different phases of my college life, that was how was it responding? For example, in my sophomore year, I'm like, did the fraternity give me a bid? that changes as you move forward or backwards. It is subjective, but we leave it to the individual answer.
Because it could relate to how you relate to an instructor.
Absolutely.
They make you feel great in class. It could relate to you want to be in club. So it has different connotations, you're right?
Absolutely, they do, and it's a sense of comfort level, and I've seen that in when students are able to, write something additional, which most of them don't, some do, but this instructor was awesome, explained quite a bit to me. I really felt comfortable in that class, and you also see their belonging. It was like a 5 in art.
So in the outcomes, it doesn't matter where that belonging comes from, just that they have it. Is that what you found? Okay.
One of the nice things when we do those standardized surveys too is it gives us our own trend data. So whatever we're doing on this campus, do students in general feel like they have a greater or lesser sense of belonging? And we get the comparison data to other institutions to say, do our students at our institution, because sometimes you will see, right, when society changes, everybody's value. I've used the example in here before. I worked at the first institution I worked at, we spent a very small school over $1 million on lighting and security. We were so proud of ourselves, and we knew it was going to help our No Levis score on students feeling secure on campus. But between one administration and that administering the survey and the next one, Virginia Tech and what happened there, so every student on every campus felt less safe. So our rates went down, even though we spent a lot of money at our institution, but we saw that ours didn't drop as significantly as others because so that's where some of that comparison is. There are things where, external factors contribute to somebody filling out a survey, that helps us compare those things.
Okay, probably better move on to the next.
All right. So now the board retreat and subsequent timeline, we'll meet you for a retreat, summer, looking forward to it. But as we look at it, the board retreat is, we're looking at it as a substantive countdown to the activities which result in having that plan. So what are we bringing to you? An outline of an environmental scan. We are getting the preliminary numbers tomorrow. We'll bring you that. Certainly the survey results. And any updated AY 2026 data that we have. This is AY 2026. I suspect about 75% of our KPIs in the current strategic plan we will bring to you. You can take a look. And based on some of the comments that you have made today, and a fleshed out concept paper that you have seen, anything that we gathered today, make improvements to it. What I'm hoping you can provide during that retreat is suggestions and fine tuning and maintenance. Or alternatively saying, Isam, you have lost your mind. Forget about it. This is what we're going to do. Fine tune you, the governing. Once that is done, the next step, we'll have, as the president pointed out, we'll certainly have internal, kind of the November, December timeline. And it's one of the questions which comes up is, well, is this a good time? Is that a good time? I know for certain that the first few weeks of fall is a very bad time. But then there are no absolute best times either. So if we spread it out between November and December, have some of those internal forums and all the constituencies. Gary, you mentioned students. I certainly have one for them as well. So incorporate that feedback and then go to the external open forum. Sometimes in January, February of 2027, one on each of the 3 campuses. And earlier when I started out, I mentioned that the survey was part 1 of the engagement process. I'm hoping this will be part 2 of it. Absolute open forums, come in, go out. Want to be respectful of people's times. Don't want to lock them up somewhere in an hour and a half to 2 hours. And as we gather that feedback, bring it back, then the College Effectiveness Council takes its place. In March and April, we incorporate them into a finalized draft strategic plan. Bring it back to you, hopefully a work session like this in May. And hopefully you can approve it in June and we can get it started July 1. Now, that being said, all that sounds so simple. And you and I both know it's not. And I don't want to communicate something which it is. It isn't simple. A lot of work goes into it. But I did want to provide a very broad outline of what the timeline looks like. And you know, anything can happen, but given what we know, this is kind of, I believe this is a reasonable way to move forward. So that being said, you know the deal. So next thing I go to is, well, what are the questions that you have for me? But here are the questions that I have for you. As a collective entity, how do you see the board's role in the community engagement open? You don't want to do anything with it, come in and go out, or have more of an observer role, however it is as a board you decide. And secondly, again, as a collective entity of the board, in optimizing communication about this plan as we move forward and hopefully adopt it, as a collective entity, what do you see here?
I think on number two, I mean, we just need outreach and just to have the information to share with the groups that we're involved in and set up meetings to talk in different groups and just do the general outreach on that.
I think also for number two, I think in terms of how we operationalize the work that we do in our meetings also, and how do we tie that to the strategic plan, and making sure that the work that we're doing when we're looking at projects or when we're looking at programs or we're looking at whatever, is to really have that be in line with what our vision and is for that opportunity thought process. So that's kind of part of how I see that as our role too, is really being intentional about saying, we're doing this because this is our goal. These are the things that we're going towards. So those are things that I'm thinking about.
I'll just build on what Vanessa was saying. I think that if this is the central, important, strategic, overarching goal that the college is focused on, that each month there is a report based on the progress in this area. So I love reading about the WIGs and all of the pictures and all of the anecdotal stories in that. But it would be really, I think, in answer to your question, I would see as one board member that if we're really governing through policy, then what are the metrics from a month to month or a quarter to quarter, so that we can affirm, gosh, we're doing great work. We've got the right people on the bus. We're headed in the right direction. Or, oh, look at what's happened, and we don't wait until it's too late to make any course correction. So that's sort of how I would
Do vision like a dashboard.
Like a
Something
dashboard.
Easy.
And absolutely, I can, and you know, it is for the top level thing, which is that index, where you're going to, it'll be more appropriate to have it once a quarter or once a term, because we don't get those numbers every day. But for some of those underlying things that we talked about, or yes, it may be something that off quarter we can provide. But again, most of these things, whether it is at this level or the underlying level, they'll be more likely on a quarter to quarter basis or term to term, we say.
I see it as, sorry, Pat, but I also see it as part of how we direct Randy through his goals, through his work as well, to be implementing, overseeing, and making sure that the work is getting done. I think that goes hand in hand with these kind of things as well. Pat, sorry, I
I
interrupted
was
you.
going to comment, we've avoided number one. I think it's important that especially in the open engagement, open forums, there needs to be a board presence here, at the least of which as an observer. And I think that each one of us should be willing to do that. I don't know how many we're going to have. I assume there's several.
At least 3 of them.
And it can be the introduction, why it's important, because if somebody from the board should say why this is important. Because if they don't feel like the board thinks it's important, nobody else will either. So I think it's important that we show why we're here. So that's.
I agree. I was thinking 2 or 3 at each one. It's just a representative of how.
Let's play the ice cream on
important
that
it is
one.
for us. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, but then I would say mostly as just an observer. That's what I would think. I thought.
So I've been involved with a lot of strategic plans and some work better than others, but the ones that I found that work the best are the ones that are living documents. In other words, if we're saying this is our game, if this is our path for the next 5 years, it's hard on day one to anticipate what winds are going to be pushing us in either direction down at 5 years. So I'm hoping that in addition to how we're responding, to how we're completing or how we're following the strategic plan, but we also have a way that collectively we can say, we need to change it.
Absolutely. And part of, I'm glad you brought that up, Pat. One of the things at the back of our mind as we started thinking about this was, is it nimble or not? I mean, we start out with the proposition that 7 years is definitely too long. 5 years is also long. 3 years is probably about where in this environment we should be. But also within it, the nimbleness is reflected in the index that for some reason, let's say, you and I have talked about the fact that, well, at some point we are already seeing kind of downward pressure on high school graduates coming in. If that downward pressure continues, what do we do in an instance like this? Well, we come back to you and say, we are going to change the index a little bit. Instead of having it 15%, we're going to make it 10 and increase it somewhere else. And it is my vision is that at the end of each academic year, you can come back and check that, is this still going good, or do we need to change the index a little bit to reflect reality? For example, if suddenly we get a whole lot of rush of transfer students. Is that something that we need to accommodate for by changing it? So that nimbleness is there, but you're absolutely right. I think we should be checking on it at the end of each year to see, hey, is this balance good, or should we recalibrate it a little bit?
I'm just thinking in terms of even as a five, I can't even imagine what it's gonna look like in 5 years.
Yeah.
Given how quickly things have been changing.
So-
So I really like that 3-year kind of come back and look and readjust and do the things. Cause it does take time. We don't want to be changing it up
Sure.
every year doing.
Quarter.
Yeah, no, but yeah, the 5-year, it's just kind of unheard of now even to be doing things 5 years out, given the. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Roger. I see your hand up there.
Thank you, Vanessa. I really like the approach, as I said before, but I'm curious, as I read through the document that we had in our board packet, it occurred to me that we're not starting off inventing the wheel here. We're modeling this to some degree on some programs that are already in operation and maybe have been for a while. I'm curious as far as what impact they've had, and are there any lessons learned that we ought to be aware of?
I can answer part of that, Roger. One of the places we got inspiration from was the Virginia Community College system, where what they did was they got rid of their 16-page plan, got rid of it. They have a 2-page plan with a single strategic goal, which is that in 10 years from 2025 to 2035, they're going to increase overall credential production by X numbers. There's not even a percentage. Like, make it simple. It is the 2025 year. It has gone up a little bit. So they're progressing in the right direction, but it's just 1 year's worth of numbers. They've gone up like 150 or so in the whole state system. But for 1 year, it has made progress, but it's just 1 out of 10 years. So I'm hesitant to say, hey, this is a great plan. Let's go with it because others are doing great. It seems to be a good idea. It seems to have some impact. I think we'll have a firmer answer in another year or so when we get their numbers. In fact, not another year. we are finishing 2026, so we're probably looking at a few months from now. Does that kind of answer your question, Roger?
It does, thank you. It sounds like though, we're plowing some pretty new ground here, from your description. Granted, the Virginia, organizations, within the state have all bought into this thing apparently. Are those the only ones that are moving in this direction outside of, the work that you're doing? Is this completely revolutionary?
I would never call myself revolutionary. It is evolutionary. There are two other institutions or two other areas where we have seen this work. I don't recall off the top of my head. Virginia is the most prominent one. There are a couple of other organizations which, instead of having just one, they've whittled it down to just 2 or 3 goals. Virginia is probably the most prominent one on that spectrum.
I know some examples, Roger, like Austin Community College has really reshaped theirs into kind of more of a North Star approach. I've talked to the president at Clark State in Ohio, theirs. And she's an old English major. She loves words, but it really reduced the plan down. The reason we're looking at 3 years, maybe 4 years max, is there is so much right now that uncertainty around where supports and expectations. We've got House Bill 4124. We don't even know what's going to be expected of us with clarity. Are we going to take on more or less? Baccalaureate degrees, what kind of resources are the state going to provide for the economic prosperity efforts that they try to, we don't know a lot. Our mission won't change. Our mission's always going to be what our mission is, but resources and ability to leverage those resources is it's really difficult for us to say we're going to like move a number that beyond the number of what do we do with the ones we get. So we don't know how many we're going to get. There's a couple key things that are going to be decided in the next 12 to 14 months that will definitely influence what we get. So what we're saying is, what do we do with the ones we get is what we want to focus on, at least for this next plan. And maybe with clarity, we set a very specific target, like a Virginia, like I know in Austin has some of these, that they know what their resources. It's been declared for them in a way that's more certain than we have today.
Easy to plan.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, fundamentally, yes.
I would agree with that, but the other thing that always comes to plan is to say, oh, I can't do it now because we don't know this. We can't do it now because of something else. And I think I applaud you for taking this stance and being aware of the fact that, gee whiz, you're, essentially building a plane as you're trying to fly it. And so I think you're sensing the board is behind you. Okay. We support what you're trying to do here. And it's just a question of how we can make it all come together. So I appreciate it.
Go ahead, Gary.
What, Isam, would happen to the existing mission, vision, and core values? What do you see happening?
That I'll answer it in 2 parts, Gary. As the survey goes out and we start getting information, there is certainly a possibility that we'll hear, what you have just doesn't work, start all over, in which case we'll come back and probably take a look. I'm highly doubtful that's what's going to happen. From our previous survey and other engagement that you have had, the mission and vision is very much in line with what the community is comfortable with. So I doubt that it's going to change. As for the other part, the core values, that's something we'll revisit. We may incorporate them as a preamble to this plan, or we may decide, you guys will be part of it, or there may be a decision that, it's probably extraneous. Let's not use it further. So that's something, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that's a little bit above my pay grade.
That's fine. I wanted to go back to a question you asked us a slide or 2 ago. And it's, again, I'm just one person. I'm conflicted about using a weight for transfers, you asked that question only, and, industry, yeah, only because although it's a good indicator, I just feel that it could contaminate really where the students are.
Mhm.
And so I'd hate to have that.
And they're already weighted more than a couple of the other things, and I
Yeah.
think it's an appropriate
Right,
weight
yeah.
for now, too.
Yeah.
Just one board member's opinion with you, but.
So you're nervous about it.
Yeah.
I understand
No,
that.
weighting them, just doing that
Waiting.
extra bonus.
Oh,
weighting.
bonus points.
Yeah, just the bonus, yeah. Not, want them in.
No, The associate's degree in Oregon has so little value that it's like
I
transfer.
figured it out, what you were
It's
saying,
Like we
yeah.
want transfers, I
Yeah,
think.
Very to that, and because I know that there'll be a little bit of perhaps more discussion on it, that we didn't put that in, and that's a very valid point, that it's something that we haven't decided yet, and there was a reason I threw it out to you, to all of you.
We only have a few more minutes. What else you got for us? Anything?
No,
Is that your last question?
I'll be happy to entertain any other questions you have, since I've asked you so many.
I'm looking forward to seeing the disaggregated data this summer, like you gave us last year. That was really beneficial for me to kind of see the direction the college was going and where we need to maybe focus a little bit more.
Definitely.
Which groups of students need a little bonus push to get them across that line too. So I look forward to our retreat this summer and the information we're gonna get.
I would like to just point out, I think we all got it, that first off, thank you, Isam, for describing this process. This process is gonna be fluid. We do the environmental scan with the community, and it becomes evident that there's a lack of clarity or that's not, then we're gonna say, let's talk about the mission vision.
Yeah.
If they're like, well, no, we understand what you're trying to do and we've got this feedback, either you're doing it well, or you're not doing it well, like, we'll get that. So we will, during the retreat visit, what do we think about our mission and vision and where are we at with our core values given this? And then we're still gonna do internal stakeholders. So like the open forums may be around, like, we have to revisit our mission because we're way off kilter with the community. That's what the open forum will be about. Or we may determine we really are comfortable with our mission based on the feedback. So let's get to some granular things for that next level. So those open forums, like we are trying to keep space for what the future will look like based on the input we get as we get it.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. before we close? All right, we are closing this session. Thank you very much. We're going to take about a 5-minute comfort break and then we will get back at 5:05.